Best of r/malicious compliance episode 19. I work in accounts payable. Normally, people like me because I give them money for whatever company related thing they need. We have a formal event on Friday. We have a contract with the caterer that says 50% upfront and 50% the next business day after the event. That would be Monday. Anyway, this caterer calls first thing this morning demanding the final check be in her possession today. No exceptions or excuses. She's throwing an absolute fit about it, so instead of explaining the contract, yet again to her, we're handing her a check tonight. So with the support of my boss we are handing her a check today, but it is dated for Monday. Hear me roar. Thank you. Next. Mobile formatting errors. First time poster. TLDR at bottom. Yada yada. I'm not a sporty type at all. I hated physical education lessons at school. I don't know if pay exists outside of the UK, but the basic premise is that once or twice a week you have a lesson where you play sports or take part in fitness activities with the aim of getting some exercise and improving your well-being. One such lesson we were playing football, known as soccer elsewhere in the world. The problem with this is that the better players became ridiculously competitive. Just to be clear, the results of these football games in pay weren't even recorded, let alone used to decide anything important, and were more than happy to shout abuse at those who made mistakes. And as someone with no interest or experience in football, who was completely incompetent in many sports, I made many. I have been called a d-head more times in school football games than outside of them. Anyway, this particular lesson was not fun. I was tired, cold, and not in the mood for being shouted at. I ended up keeping a distance from the ball, jogging around and jumping up and down to keep warm, until, that is, this conversation began, with another student I will call A due to my failure to remember their name. Hey, why aren't you joining in the game? Me, because if I do, you will shout and swear at me the instant I do anything wrong. Hey, we never do that. Yes they do. Just do something with the ball. Me, well what do you want me to do with it? Hey, I don't know, just FG pass it somewhere when you get it. Cue me making every attempt to pass to the opposing team. This actually very easy, because if one team kicks the ball off the field, the other team gets it. So I pretty much just had to kick it hard in the vague direction of the edge of the pitch, and boom. My team lost possession of the ball. I know it's a short story, but it filled me with immense satisfaction to see the frustration on the faces of those who cause me so much frustration, while those like me didn't care at all about the outcome of the game. I have done similar things when I have been berated for missing catches while fielding and rounders, vaguely like baseball I think, essentially walking off and leaving my base unguarded when told that I should never be on a base because you're so terrible. TLDR. I refuse to participate properly in a school soccer match because I will have abuse shouted at me by over-competitive teammates. Said teammates insist that I pass the ball somewhere when I get it. I spend the rest of the game attempting to pass the ball to the opposition. Thank you. Next. So my company is stingy when it comes to working hours, when it suits them. For the last week my team and I have to been working 11+ hour workdays to get a project out to a client. Quick mention. We have never been paid overtime even after being promised. My one teammate, let's call him Ken, travels quite a distance to get to the office, and so Ken usually arrives 1 hour late but always makes sure to work it back by staying later than most of the team. Even has gone as far as not taking a lunch break. He eats at his desk and works. So today he made an effort to get in as early as he could to leave at 4. He worked through lunch, and when the clock struck 4 he started packing up his laptop to take home with him, because he took off tomorrow, Friday. As Ken was saying goodbye to the team, our manager starts shitting on him because arrived late yesterday and so he never works his full hours, even though our team has put in and paid overtime for the previous week. Ken knows that there is a release that needs to go out on Tuesday, and that's why he was planning to take his laptop home, in case there was items that popped up whilst he was on leave. Ken sat back down at his desk, unpacked his laptop and calculated the exact minutes he owed the company and sat for that exact time. We are an IT company and use a thing called TFS. For those who don't know what that is, it is basically a glorified digital collection of sticky notes to keep track of who's doing what. As he opened his TFS board, the items under his name were all in testing and so he did not have anything to work on. Here comes the MC. He knows that there is pressure to get this release out on Tuesday, but because he got shat on for trying to leave on time with his laptop so he could work the weekend, Ken wasn't asked to take his laptop home, but wanted to take one for the team. He simply smiled and left, knowing full well that the deadline would not be met if he didn't take his laptop home. Thank you. Next. A relative of mine dates in a doc. It was a typical slammed evening, and a lady arrived with a non-urgent, non-personal area problem. All treatment rooms were full. The doc suggested that she have a seat in the hallway, and they could probably get her taken care of fairly soon. She started complaining about being in the hallway, and used the term HIPAA. That was all it took. The doc said, "No problem. Have a seat in the full waiting room and we'll get you a room when we can." The patient said, "You know, doctor, I'm actually comfortable being seen in the hall." He replied, "But now I'm not comfortable with it." She was there for 6 hours before a room was available. Thank you. Next. This was years ago when I worked in a machine shop. The company built custom sound damping cabinets that went around milling machines and the like. I was responsible for building oil extractors that went on top of milling machines to extract oil from the air and deposit it back into the oil pan. These were very precise little machines and I was the only one in the company who knew how to manufacture most of the parts and assemble them. There was a main part, doohickey, that we did not make but purchase from another milling company on the other side of the state. I lived between our shop and the milling company. This is important. We were working on this really huge order for one of our main customers and they wanted 30 of these units. We had no order keys, so I asked my manager if instead of coming into work, punching and then going right back out to the mill on the other side of my home, if I could just go directly there, get that parts and he would take care of my time card. My manager agreed it would be a good idea and give us a few more hours, which we needed, to finish assembling the units. All was well until I arrived at the shop. The plant manager was on one of his rants and saw me walk in and demanded to know why I was late but refused to actually listen. So he tells my manager he knows the rules. If you come in late you are not eligible for any overtime and can only work 40 hours. No more for that week, and to make sure I did not get any overtime. Now comes the MC. I had worked Sunday along with a lot of others to get this order done on time. Order had to ship by coming Monday. This was Thursday morning. I had my 40 hours in the night before, so I was already on overtime. I packed up my tools and headed for the door, walking past my manager and he asked where I was going. We needed the extractors for the order. I told him I could not work any more that week as I already had my 40 hours. See you Monday. And walked out. Needless to say, the order did not ship. Customer was really upset, and the company lost all kinds of money on the deal. Oh, and I found a new job that Friday, so I never went back. LOL. Edit. Since several people have asked. The device I built was called a mist collector. Generic term. Basic idea is a round housing with a high-speed motor attached to the center. On the motor is an impeller blade with a nylon string filter attached. When it was turned on, it pulled air through the cylinder, collecting any airborne cooling or cutting oil in the filter. Centrifugal force pushed the oil to the outside edge where it collected in a pan and would run down a hose back into the machine. Edit 2. This was nearly 40 years ago and I still lived with my parents, so it was not that bad leaving. And I live in Rhode Island, which is a very small state, and you get to know what companies are doing what and who is hiring in your area pretty easily. BTW. None of this was automated work. We had 2 computers, one running Win3, 11 and the other DOS 6. 22 that were used in the office. Thank you. Next. Take 2 on the post. Hopefully it's within the rules this time, as people seem to enjoy the story. English is not my first language, but I'll gladly take criticism on the post below. To this day this is one of the funniest stories that me and my dad share around the table with guests. Mind you, he's still incredibly pissed it happened but has since seen the funnier side of it. The chance of it happening again as well is so incredibly low, I don't think I could make it happen again even if we tried. The setting. My father is a very stubborn man and I definitely inherited that trait. When we want something done, we want it done immediately. Onto the story. Late one summer we were both working on our new backyard balcony. I was busy replacing the new sliding doors and he was smoothing out the wood, hammering down some stray nails and replacing any rotten boards. He was about 5 meters away from me while I was at the entrance of our back porch. I had just gotten the first slide door in place and was busy pulling the second one into the sliding mechanism of the door when the following conversation happens. Dad, where's the damn hammer? There's so many loose nails around this balcony, it's a miracle one of the little ones didn't hurt themselves. Me, over here, Dad, motioning with my head to the hammer next to me, just finishing sliding in this door and then I can hand it over. Dad, throw it over here. I want to finish up and head inside. Me, I can't. This door is incredibly heavy and I need both hands to even just keep it up. Dad, kick the damn thing over then. Now the thought of kicking around any tool already sent red flags going off in my head, so I wasn't going to do it easily. Logic was still prevailing at that point. Me, Dad, I really can't. Get up and get it over here yourself. Dad, I perfectly lined up this wood board. I don't want to lose the placing. Put the sliding door down and come and give me the hammer. The argument continued without any resolution. We were both getting angry and frustrated at the other person. Me, getting frustrated the board is not going to run away. Stand up slowly and get the hammer. Dad, getting more frustrated and screaming, just kick the hammer over. Logic had officially flown out the window, like this hammer was going to in a second. Me, peak frustration levels fine. In a flash I placed my foot underneath the handle of the hammer and flung that thing directly at the direction of my father. The next few seconds happened so quickly I couldn't even process what had occurred until everything had settled down. By the grace of whichever god, the hammer had flown, not directly at my father, but at the toolbox right in front of him. The next second I saw something flying back at me. Did he throw something at me? No. It's a screwdriver. Flying directly at me. Instincts kick in and I dodge out of the way, placing both of my hands in front of me to cover my head and face from possible impalement. Another second later we were both deafened by the sound of broken glass and metal hitting on wood. We both stared at the now broken sliding door for what felt like an eternity, in utter amazement of the sequence of events at what had just happened. Needless to say, the old man was pissed for a while after that. TLDR. Stubborn dad and son cause a lot of damage to an unsuspecting sliding door. Thank you. Next. I just walked into my living room to see my older child doing some sort of weird interpretive dance in the hallway entrance while his younger brother stood with frustrated tears welling in his eyes. I asked what was going on. Big brother replied, little brother asked me to move for a minute. I've got 30 seconds left. It's the start of summer school holidays here. I've got 6 more weeks of this.